Let me begin by calling us to order. I call the February 26, 2024 school board meeting to order. It is 6:01 p.m. We're in conference room C of the Fisher Administration Building at 12121 West North Avenue. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Dr. Hoyt? Here. Ms. Willis? Here. Dr. Worley? Here. Ms. Hammer-Rolland? Here. Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Dr. Jessup Binger?
Here. We are officially in session. We are going to start off with a couple recognitions and celebrations of two groups of folks who are really important in our district. The first one is folks who are being recognized for performing particularly well in the CISA Spelling Bee. What I would love to do is call up a number of students. And what I'm hoping is that you can share either your favorite word or your favorite word to spell. They may be different. You can share both. I have told the story in both my 6th and 7th grade spelling bee. I got out on the same word both years. That's embarrassing. The word was banana. I kept trying to add ends to it. I have now learned that there's only ends in appropriate places. Touche. I later became an English major in college, so it all turned out okay. But
By then you had a computer to help you spell.
there were not computers when I was in college. Word processors, unfortunately. But we've got 3 students who we're honoring tonight, and congratulations to the students and their families and supporters who no doubt have spent a lot of time doing a lot of reading and a lot of work to help develop these skills. The first student is from Jefferson Elementary, Natalie Bieberitz.
You want to tell us your favorite word or your favorite word that you spelled in the spelling bee?
My favorite word to spell is apprehensive because I go APPRE. I like that part.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Good job.
The next student is from Wilson W. STEM Elementary, Elliot Wu.
I don't really have a favorite word to spell.
And that's okay too.
What's the hardest one you've ever?
Well,
Is there a word that you won the spelling bee with?
Mm.
What was the last word you spelled? Do you remember?
I think it was peradventure.
That's impressive.
Yeah, very good. Congratulations.
And then the winner of the spelling bee from Lincoln Elementary was Jacob. Do you have a favorite word that you enjoy spelling or a favorite word?
I don't really know.
What word did he win on? Yeah, what word?
What word did you win on?
Well, my dad says it's surrealist, but it's repercussion.
Congratulations to all of you for your work in school and for your work on becoming really great spellers. Any comments or questions from the board? Ms. Wills?
If I may invite, there's an additional Jefferson student up here too, who I think was taken out by her best friend that's sitting next to her. Is that right? Yeah. No? Okay. I thought it was. All right. Well, if I may invite the students up here, if you'd like to come up here and spell a word that I give you. Yeah? Come on up.
Ooh, I'm on the spot. Yeah.
Oof, all right. The word is excellent.
Excellent. EXCELLENT. Excellent.
I think that spelling there was truly excellent.
Well, congratulations to you all. That's a big achievement and way to represent your schools.
Outstanding work. The other group that we have here tonight is to celebrate School Crossing Guard Week. A lot of the folks who spend a lot of time and energy keeping our students safe coming to and leaving schools every day. I want to invite those guys who's going to do some introductions.
All right, we celebrated Wisconsin School Crossing Guard Week last week, and we'd like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the dedicated crossing guards who ensure the safety of our students each day. Thank you for your commitment and service to our community. We would like to thank the wonderful crossing guards that serve the Wauwatosa School District and the surrounding schools. When I say your name, if you can stand. Deborah Gill. She has been with the Crossing Guard Company for 5 years. Barbara Newman has been with the company for 5 years. Michael Kalka, 5 years. Sierra Rushing, 5 years of service. Susan Bartz, 5 years of service. Brittany Paul is a supervisor. Jennifer Metcalf is the regional manager, and she is unable to attend. Anna Reed. Sandra Yearden. Margaret Hart. Ernest Dyson. Bobby Remburn. And Charles Fink.
Ready for service.
Thank you all so much for both joining us this evening and for all the work that you do to keep kids across Wauwatosa safe. You are welcome to stay. If we'd like to take a moment, I would love if the board could get a picture with the students first, who are the Spelling Bee award winners who are here with us tonight. And we can have folks come up. Dr. Means, would you mind getting a picture of us?
That would be my pleasure to do so.
And then we'll have the crossing guards come up as well. Ms. Wills.
May I just make another quick comment? Sorry, I'm talking a lot already. But I just want to recognize all the crossing guards, especially Miss Deb out there. She was at Jefferson before, unfortunately, we had to reduce to just one crossing guard. But I just wanted to say that you are missed. And these crossing guards are more than just crossing guards. They are like family. They greet our kids. They know our names. They have a warm, friendly smile. So thank you for everything that you do.
Welcome. Awesome. If the board could gather, we'll kind of slide right behind the table. And if students want to come up, we'll get a picture. And then the crossing guards will go right after.
Do we count?
Yes, count.
Okay.
And then let the kids go in the middle. That's really really cool.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yes, that's great.
Everybody spelled cheese.
I don't know how to spell that. Cheese.
All the vendors. Dr. Means, if you take it all back.
You were good.
All right.
Good job.
Okay, now.
Okay, that's right. We did. Give me a man. Oh, we're right. No, again.
You want to take a picture of that?
Several parents.
More space.
That's right.
Way to help them out.
Yeah, careful on the course. We have our course running all over. That's it.
Yeah, come on in. Again,
Yes.
Watch out behind you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Okay, that's. That's.
All right, here we go.
Here we go, huh?
Okay.
No, you're great right there. Yes.
On three. 1, 2, 3. And then on 3, let's say walk. 1, 2, 3. Walk.
All right, thank you. Don't run. Quit running. Don't run. Oh my
So friendly.
I call it my kid across the garden.
My mom would have been hysterical across the guard. She just would have chatted with everybody. Never would have gotten to school. Everybody was tardy.
I don't know what her name is. Like Bridget Hopper School. So she keeps moving. She stops all the traffic. You will not go. So I see people that are itching to like running like, don't do it. She's gonna jump in front of your car.
Yeah, she doesn't even like that one. Are you talking about the one over like
That's
kind of by the fire station?
Yes.
Yeah, she doesn't even like when you try to turn the other way. Like you do not move.
You learn the first time.
Thank you again, everyone, for being here. You are welcome to stay, but we are also understand if you've got other places to be this evening, and you can't stay for our business meeting this evening, that you may scoot out early this evening as well. But thank you all very much, and I hope you have a great night. We will now head into a moment of public comment. Members of the Wauwatosa School Board value the input of students, parents, staff members, and community members. The board's regularly scheduled meetings provide an opportunity for opinions and concerns to be expressed publicly. The board values all comments and will respectfully consider this input in decision-making. The board requests that individuals limit their comment on each item to 3 minutes. Following any comment, an individual board member may respond on the issue raised. However, it is not the intent of the public comment portion of the agenda for the board to enter into a debate with a member or members of the community. Because non-agenda items are not publicly posted in advance, no action will be taken on public comment regarding non-agenda items this evening. Do we have any public comment this evening in the room? You're welcome to come on up to the microphone, and if you want to share your name, and you've got 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Charlie. I graduated from Wauwatosa East in 2006, and it's very interesting to see the type of changes and the interactions that the teachers have with students. And I'm coming here just to learn a little bit about what type of special ed or behavioral ed programs that you may still offer.
Thank you.
And I do want to make one comment about the crossing guard. The interchange at Glendale and Blue Mound does get severely dangerous. I've heard that the previous crossing guards have had a lot of contact with the police. There's also homeless living in the area, very high speed traffic. Ultimately, though, there are 0 Wauwatosa students or Wauwatosa School District students that I'm actually crossing. They are from St. Jude. So I just would like everyone to become aware of that.
Thank you. Any other comments in the room this evening? Seeing none, anything online this evening?
Yes, there are. Julia Alexander, you can talk.
Hello, I am a person with a disability, and I'm just thinking about the tremendous challenges that the school board has at this time, and I am hoping and with you in terms of trying to see if there's a way that we can come up with some type of way for us to deal with our budget issues and still meet the needs of people with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sykes, can talk now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Carrie Sykes. I'm just calling to say a word of thanks for my kids' year in Eisenhower. I've said thanks to Mr. Stein several times. I have written some thank you notes to the staff, but I just wanted to say a big thanks again to the greater Tosa community and all that contribute at Eisenhower, because it's been a much different experience this year for my kids than it has the previous two. So I just wanted to say a really big thank you.
Thank you for that.
There are no more hands raised.
With that, we will close public comment. And we will move into our next agenda item, the consent agenda. Are there any items in the consent agenda which board members would like to remove for separate discussion and action? Mr. Myers?
I will have a general comment on the consent agenda, just to be sure we pause a little bit for that, but I don't want to remove anything and single anything out.
Understood. Seeing none? Ms. Hammer-Rollins?
It is recommended that the school board approve the consent agenda, and I so move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. Any comment from the board on the consent agenda?
Mr. Myers.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes, thank you. I don't want to single out anything. So that's why my vote will be what it will be on the whole agenda. We're all well aware that we are facing very severe budget challenges. And a lot of financial transactions go through the consent agenda. And I think I'm getting some heartburn that we don't tap the brakes on spending sooner than later. And I think it would be fair somehow to, if we have a discretionary item, that perhaps we highlight what things would not be. A thing that we are purchasing now or approving now, be it a contract, a pay raise, or whatever, that we start to inform the community what there is to lose. And because I don't think there is an awareness out there of the specific, impact of what we're facing. And yet I don't want to, at the same time, give the impression that we're not tightening our belts or something like that, and that, so that's my concern. I think I would like to see us communicate more about, as we proceed the next few months, things that look normal, the things that won't be normal if there isn't funding brought to bear on it. Thanks.
Dr. Chisvanger, there's two items. The first is on tonight's consent agenda is the resignation of Mr. Keith Brightman. And I just want to thank Mr. Brightman for his 2 years of service. It's been outstanding. To be in the field of school finance is difficult. And when you like to always say that Wauwatosa adds an extra layer of complexity to the work. But I just want to thank him for his service. He will still be with us for the next 4 months or so. So this will be it's not a goodbye. It's just, I just want to acknowledge it this evening. I also want to acknowledge that we've already started the process of finding a replacement, and that recruitment process has started. We're very optimistic that we'll have a strong pool of candidates, and Ms. Zelazowski and I are confident that we'll find someone that will meet the challenges that Wauwatosa uniquely presents to any CFO. But tonight is a night to recognize the good work that Mr. Brightman has brought to us, but I also want to reassure the board and the community that we are in good hands forward.
Thank you.
And then I want to pass it over to Ms. Zelazowski on another aspect of tonight's consent agenda.
Thank you very much. This evening's employee transactions portion of the consent agenda includes salary increase recommendations for 49 Wauwatosa teachers in the district. As many of you remember, implementing and supporting the further consistency of our teacher compensation system in the Wauwatosa School District has been a priority for us for several years. So tonight's recommendation follows a line item that we requested in the budget for this year to go ahead and reinvest in some teacher salaries. working with the Wauwatosa Education Association. We wanted to, again, make sure that our compensation system is as consistent as possible. And the Wauwatosa Education Association in particular has a priority of investing in veteran teacher salaries. And we felt that the analysis that we prepared that looked at a couple of different comparisons best suited that objective. I would highlight that 80% of the educators who are recommended for salary increases have over 10 years in the district, and over 50% of them have more than 25 years in the district. So really excited about, again, helping to go ahead and remind our veteran educators of their value in our organization and overall the importance of having a consistent compensation system. I would also note that this is not the last recommendation I'm bringing you. We will continue to bring forward recommendations a second year for our admin assistants and educational assistants. I have also worked with our technology staff members. I'm currently working with our recreation coordinators in the district and another group that we need to go ahead and make some work on are our associate principals. So I will continue to bring those forward as we make strides in that area for all of our staff members.
These 49 staff members are people who stuck with us. These are people who stayed when they didn't have to stay. And candidly, these are the 49 people that when we provided the 12%, the board expressed to us that you wanted us to continue to find ways to address and to acknowledge their contributions to Wauwatosa. So I concur with everything that Ms. Zelazowski said. While we're very pleased with what we're able to present to you this evening, we know that there's still more work to do. That the people who are in the classrooms and in the schools, as we acknowledge our crossing guards this evening, the people who are with our students, we have to make sure that they're compensated, that they're taken care of. This is just another step in what we consider to be a process of trying to make people whole after many years of them not being whole. So thank you, Ms. Zelazowski. She's being very humble. She spent a lot of time with our association. This recommendation that's coming this evening is done in conjunction with, in collaboration with our union. This is not being done to anyone, but it's done as a partnership. So thank you, Sarah, for your hard work as well.
Dr. White.
I was definitely one of the board members historically who asked for you to continue to keep in mind our veteran teachers. And just for people who maybe don't remember from a year or so ago when we approved the original 12% raise, many of these teachers, I'm guessing the vast majority of them, because they had been here so long, because we had underpaid our teachers for so long, our veteran teachers in particular, missed multiple sort of steps along the rungs of the ladder, so that even though they were able to get a raise, they were still substantially below where they should be for their years of service. So I just want to be really clear about why this is something that's so important, that it isn't compensating extra. It's actually just compensating to the years of service for.
We're playing catch up.
We're playing catch up. Yes. Thank you.
Any additional board comment or questions, Ms. Willis?
Just another thought that I had looking at the consent agenda. Just wanted to point out that I was super excited to see that we hired some more educational assistants as well as special education assistants. I know that's been a priority of ours, and it really makes a difference for our teaching staff and our students to have that support. So thank you.
Seeing no other comments and questions from the board, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Dr. Hoyt,
Yes.
Ms. Willis,
Yes.
Dr. Worley,
Yes.
Ms. Heimer Roland,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Abstain.
Dr. Jessup Banger.
Yes, and that agenda item passes. Next up is strategic goal 5, culture and climate. We'll be discussing and reviewing first semester behavioral and discipline data for the community. There was a substantial presentation that it was available on board docs for the community to review. The board had access to that well over a week ago, and I presume everyone has watched that. This will be an opportunity for kind of a short recap of that data by the team, and then also for board question, comment, and discussion. With that, Mr. Pinion, I hand it off to you.
All right, good evening, board members. Before I just highlight some of what you've already reviewed in preparation for tonight, I'd introduce ourselves again for you all in the community. I'm Luke Pinion, your Chief of Pupil and Family Supports.
Stacy Clem, Director of Special Education.
Shonda Holland, Director of Diversity and Inclusion. Emily O'Connor, Director of Student Success.
Our division leaders are very pleased to be here tonight to share with you not only the unprecedented progress we have made in a remarkably short period of time, but also the opportunity to continue clarifying our work and the work of our staff who have made these results and outcomes possible for students. Additionally, in the data and associated presentation you viewed in preparation for tonight, it is clear that our work is not yet done. First, we'll start with some highlights. What hopefully jumped off the presentation for you this evening in preparation was the fact that when we compare last semester's major discipline referrals, majors being administrative managed, to this current school year's first semester, we have reduced 701 major behavioral events, which when you think about the time, energy, and resources that go into each of those events is remarkable. We've had improvements greatly in our data accuracy and integrity in terms of how we record it, where it's recorded. We've had growth and in our trending in the right direction for student attendance. We've had a reduction in students who have multiple office discipline referrals. Our risk ratio has been reduced for our federally identified disproportionality for out-of-school suspensions for Black and African American students and students with disabilities. We have clarity and accountability for adult behaviors and expectations and the expectations of adults to reduce disproportionality. We have intentional planning and processes to support students proactively and in alignment with systems that are now in place, and a successful start to our Champions Alternative Education program and successful reinstatement of many students into their home school. What is working well, or what do we contribute our successes and our progress to? First, and I know you may be sick of hearing it, but systems and processes to ensure consistency and guarantees for children when it comes to universal services, so those that all of us receive, selected or tier 2 and intensive or tier 3 interventions. This really is our SST and our PACE processes. Those are our biggest levers when it comes to how we're moving through these decision points and ensuring consistent guarantees for students. We have standardized proactive behavioral supports and systems and high-level discipline proceedings. We have been setting up for success more consistently and are maintaining relentless and vigilant focus. We have more alternatives to punitive discipline and options for children that need it. And we have appropriate staffing levels and are more intentional about equitable distribution of those staff. What do we need to pause, adjust, or keep doing? We need to pause reacting to individual data points or chasing initiatives and great ideas. You've heard it before, we can do anything, but we cannot do everything. What do we need to adjust? Continue refining our SST structure for community members. That's our student support teams in our school buildings and how we move through decision points to layer on supports for students and ensure that what's happening universally is working. SST, like I said, is our primary lever to ensure staff take greater responsibility for the success of all students as well. We need to adjust the mindsets and the historical practices of adults, which we'll get to even in more detail in a minute. And what do we need to keep doing? We need to keep maintaining a relentless, vigilant focus on the proactive behavioral support systems, primarily through the SST process, and our culturally responsive learning environments that are embedded within Strategic Goal 3.1. As a reminder, it has only been a year and a half since our team has stepped in and really engaged in this work. And this is unprecedented progress in what is most certainly multi-year work. Our opportunities. We need and must to continue the trend of decreasing disproportionality in our high-level discipline or suspensions and leveraging evidence-based alternatives that are demonstrated to have sustaining and long-term results versus temporary removals that can often worsen behavior. We need to continue our clarity and expectations for adult behaviors regarding proactive strategies to reduce disproportionality, which hopefully you saw in tonight's slides. There were some details there about the expectations of behaviors of adults. This is an opportunity for us to continue leaning and learning into the expectations around culturally responsive learning environments and the DEIA professional developments Mrs. Holland has been engaged in with our DEIA advocates. Our opportunities to introduce risk ratio at the school level. We'll be doing that with all of our administrators in March and breaking down the risk ratio concept by each school and giving them mechanisms to monitor that and adjust practice as they see that more sensitive measure change month by month, quarter by quarter, year by year. And we need to continue our diligent efforts to maintain our positive growth and trends. In essence, approach every month like it's September. Our call to action is broken down for community and families, staff, and the board. The first call to action is for everybody. We need to maintain and live our core values around equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Oftentimes, individuals claim to be inclusive, yet are quick to want students removed when behaviors manifest from a behavioral disability. This call to action is particularly for those who often rally against elementary children with emotional and behavioral disabilities, and to those who remain silent to these injustices. We must be patient with children and with the long process it takes to affect behavioral, social, and emotional change. Also, to communities and families, continue to partner with school and district staff to support all of our children, approach concerns from an inquiry-based lens, and contribute to the establishment of an atmosphere in which the rights and duties of students, policies, and practices are acknowledged. For staff, continue engaging in effective teaching practices and develop positive learning environments in alignment with the professional learning and some of the slides you viewed in preparation for tonight around adult behaviors, and continue developing genuine connections and relationships. Model dignity and respect for each and every student, regardless of differences. And to the board, seek to understand this work and how the board can support it from a governance and macro perspective. Continue developing and refining policies that support our work and, more importantly, support students' well-being and success. And lastly, continue allocating resources to support students. Again, you've seen all the slides in the recorded presentation. We welcome your questions, comments on the content for tonight.
Thank you all.
Hey, may I just say something before the board begins with, I hope, really good questions and our dialogue. I jokingly said as the team was walking down the hallway, here comes the A team. And I will say that again in March when our Division of Academic Performance comes before you. We have an outstanding district leadership team. And I know there have been times where people have said there's more people in the district office than before. There are. And there are because we're playing, as we talked about with consent agenda, we're playing catch up in many ways. There were supports and systems that were not in place to support students, support our teachers, and support our schools to be the very best we can be in service to children. And the team that's in front of you this evening, they have done amazing work in putting things in place. I want to just say thank you to them publicly. They know that I trust them explicitly. The community should trust them, not because I say so, but the data speaks for itself and the work speaks for itself. And I appreciate what they're doing to make our school environments better for students to feel safe and to flourish academically. So thank you for the opportunity for me to really acknowledge great work from this team.
Thank you. Comments and questions from the board?
I'll throw one out there. So looking at the data of the major ODRs from last year to this year for semester one, did you notice any trends or data regarding between the decreases and increases? So looking at all the schools decreased except for the three, Lincoln, McKinley, and Montessori. Were there any things that were noticed or identified there that were either in place at those schools or that may not have occurred at those three?
No, I can say that oftentimes in our elementary schools, it might be a combination of one or two students that we're working through planning, adjusting the plan that can make that shift a little bit more visible. We noticed that last year when we presented the data, but nothing system-wide in terms of all the processes, support we've outlined, that's been consistent across those schools.
Dr. Hoyt.
Well, first, let me start by saying this is just so amazing. I don't know if people are able to sort of grasp where we were a year ago and how amazing it is that we're seeing this degree of change in such a short period of time. That is relatively unheard of in behavior change sort of overall. It takes a much longer time usually to see changes like this. So congratulations to you and your team. Congratulations to our schools who are clearly working very hard to implement the plans that you have in place. I also noticed, like Mr. Morris, the three elementary schools that had higher rates of referral. And did ask the question in advance, like, what was that? And learned that it was individual students primarily who have multiple referrals. I see that our secondary schools in particular, like I see huge decreases in their number of referrals. So that's amazing. I also know we have some additional programs that we can offer to our secondary students, like the Champions program that we don't have at the elementary level. I was also kind of horrified to hear from some families that there was a school in particular where like parents essentially like staged a sit down to demand that a student be removed from school, which is not only against the law, but is also just horrifying to think about how excluded that student and family must feel from their school environment and how that perpetuates these ongoing challenges that we probably see. So one of the questions I have for you is, how do community members, caregivers, how can they be positively involved in change?
My first instinct to answer that is kind of what I said earlier, is come from an inquiry-based lens. There is a lot happening, whether it's visible behind the scenes that people aren't aware of in terms of how we move through things, how we support students, how we reallocate or look at staff, how we move through plans and the plans not working and having to come back together, how we're huddling around students. So really just understanding there are layers upon layers of moving through this, not only just from a practical service standpoint, but also from a legal standpoint of what we're required to do. Those get even 10 times more complex when it's a student with disability from a legal standpoint as well. And get involved in the outlets. We have 6 or 7 committees in our division alone. There are lots of opportunities for community members to get engaged. If anyone else wants to say.
They're going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I was also going to say, just to remain curious, oftentimes what we're finding when there are situations like the one you mentioned, the storyline of actually the reality and the facts of what happened, and then what is spread about is often not even close to the facts of the story. So anytime you're hearing a story from hearsay to hearsay to hearsay, it becomes more and more dramatic than actually what the true facts of the story are. So, I mean, bringing it back to, I wonder what the principal would say, or when you're hearing storylines, if you're asking what the community can do, go directly to your principal and ask the principal about what happened rather than going to different avenues of information, because the principal will share with you the information that you need to know from about your student and your child. So they're the most important.
Thank you. You know, the one area obviously where we're not moving the needle as much as disproportionality, which is concerning. I know the behavioral outcomes, the things that we're looking at are really lagging indicators. They suggest something is going sort of wrong along the way, and it's leading to some of these behavioral difficulties, you know, whether that's some academic difficulties, boredom in the classroom, not feeling a sense of belonging. From your team's perspective, how are we helping students before they even get to those behavioral referrals? How are we helping make sure that we are increasing sense of belonging so that our disproportionality numbers hopefully are decreasing in time?
Speak a little bit some of the work you've done, and then I'll speak more to, I don't know what slide number it is.
And maybe just say your name and what your title again for the community watching sake.
My name is Shonda Holland, and I'm the Director of Diversity and Inclusion. And one of the ways that we are working to help staff to increase the sense of belonging for their students is around the culturally responsive practices and strategies that we are implementing within every school. So we have DEI advocates that provide professional learning on almost a monthly basis. They collaborate with the culturally responsive learning facilitators as well. And they are making sure that they are providing strategies that are very specific and intentional in helping teachers to not only provide spaces where students feel a sense of belonging, but also uplifting the equity core beliefs and making sure that teachers are able to understand and implement those equity core beliefs.
I ask a follow-up question. Can you explain those DEIA coordinators, you called them? Advocates. Just explain who they are. They are already existing staff in the building, correct? That volunteered to...
They are existing staff within the district. The majority are classroom teachers, but there are also school psychologists. There are also there were coaches, but we did actually move the coaches. We have a special education teacher as well, and we also have another specialist. But at any rate, these are individuals who decided that they were very equity focused and wanted to use their equity lenses to really work collaboratively with their peers to help them to better understand what equity work can look like and how they can actually work collaboratively to start to eliminate the disproportionality. Our DEIA advocates do receive monthly professional learning from myself and an outside agency. And teachers, students, and family members are able to request advocacy through a Google form. With the younger students, the advocates actually go from classroom to classroom to make sure that the students are aware of who they are. Information is also posted in the weekly newsletters that are provided by the building leaders. And we actually have a really good rate of students and families that go directly to the advocates, teachers as well, when they need to have a thought partner around specific issues that are equity related.
I just wanted to point out a couple of things. These are not additional staff that we hired. They were staff that were already existing, and there's staff that are in the building. So they understand the culture of the buildings. They know their peers that they're working with, and they're able to provide support that way.
And it's often when they are providing professional learning, it is received at a different level because it is coming from a peer as opposed to someone that they don't feel can necessarily relate to some of the concerns that they have as educators within the community.
Thank you.
I'd like to add on to the question Dr. Hoyg asked too. The slide that is titled Disproportionality Continues Shifting Adult Practice also calls out many of the adult behaviors and expectations we have that start on the front end well before there's a behavioral error or a misbehavior of some sort in terms of how the adult carries themselves throughout their day, the mindset of which they approach and how they interact with students. And then also our SST for behavior is designed also to try to catch things. They are looking at minors as well, where you have a bigger leverage point of things that might be building up over time and trying to intervene before they become majors. But that's really the main lever and focus we've been leaning into in our work to really combat some of the harsh data. As it relates to risk ratio, again, we're federally identified for the suspension side of things, which we are seeing some improvements in, right? We went from a 9.9 to an 8.13. Now let's be real. The fact that our Black and African American students are still 8 times more likely to be suspended is not acceptable to any of us. But we are encouraged that it has come down from one semester to this last semester.
I just have one more question. I want to ask you specifically about our strategic objective 3.6. Where it states, just for people who don't have it in front of them, ensure appropriate mental health behavioral responses occur when students are dysregulated at school. This will include leveraging our mental health professionals to support students in crisis. So I wanted to just get a sense of how you feel like we're doing in making headway in that, as opposed to, I think, historically, where really our school resource officers were kind of the primary group that were being called, as opposed to utilizing the mental health professionals that we have.
Emily, do you want to?
Sure.
Yeah, so we have really reset expectations around our school crisis team interventions, which I think has helped. Oftentimes the crisis team is cross-section of staff that are trained in multiple areas, but including some pretty significant behavioral instances, which could be the result of some underlying mental health challenges. Our student services staff, again, as Mr. Pinion said, we've really also reinvested in that SST process so that we can monitor students' data more closely and create more proactive plans, which I do think helps with the kind of perhaps the chronic behavioral needs that might have warranted and might have resulted in an SRO involvement. So I would say SST coupled with just really renorming on our crisis teams and being very thoughtful about making sure that training happens in an ongoing way. We map that out throughout the course of the year and also provide it on an as needed basis throughout the year.
I would add that anecdotally in our SRO data we receive, which will be in the next written board update, they read differently than last year. And we've had a lot of growth with our SRO program in the last year, but I'm not seeing a lot of the same type of responsive pieces that may have been more historical or in the absence of some of our specialists in mental health or social emotional learning. And they are also taking extra care to highlight the proactive measures as well in those relationship building pieces from our SROs.
Great. Thank you so much.
Ms. Wills.
Yes, thank you for this work. It's so great to see. And I love the latter analogy that you gave, that we're just looking at it at a very low level. And, we don't necessarily see trends yet, but we see some good things, some things that we can highlight and celebrate. I wanted to talk about, much like I talked about the academic performance for our Black students, the disproportionality for our vulnerable and marginalized students, which includes our Black students and our students with disabilities. We had an Underwood parent in here just recently, almost in tears, clearly emotional, saying that this was the first time that her son has wanted to go to school. And, I think that was due to some of his special needs that he had. It just wasn't being met. And much like what you said, I think, especially at the elementary level, teachers are maybe too eager to send kids out into the hallway or out of their room, right? Rather than to support them and figure out what the barriers could be. How can we as a board, how can you as a district, and we have two of our great building leaders in here, but how can we empower and support them to hold teachers to the expectation that we have made clear? Again, I think we're doing everything as a board. I just highlighted that we hired a number of special education assistants. We hired a number of educational assistants, right? So we're doing our best to give teachers the tools that they need. We're compensating them fairly, but how can we now at a building level, because we do see some disparities across buildings, empower and support our building leaders to make sure our teachers are reaching expectations to meet the needs of all of our students?
When I think about that question from a district leadership standpoint, I think about a couple things. One is maintaining a focus. I think it's easy to get lost and say, oh, we've got a big strategic plan. There's a lot in it. That we're doing a lot of great things. But really drilling down to what is it in SST? How is that process? What do those conversations and pace look like? Getting into those meetings, disrupting conversations that aren't meeting the expectation that we're holding. I also believe introducing risk ratio will be really important for our school buildings. We have not had a consistent way to measure our disproportionality in a sensitive way. We've eyeballed graphs and looked at data and calculated percentages, where this is really a mechanism that is sensitive to change and will be a way to really make that visible in real time on a quarterly basis, or even more frequent. I also think we're drawing staff's attention continually back to some of the information on the shifting adult practice slide so that everyone has the same understanding about what we're looking for. When Mrs. Holland is doing walkthroughs in buildings, elevating that data as well for the building and bringing it back to the principal, bringing it back to the staff. And then all of that making its way into their school growth plan, which they will be undertaking a new iteration of this spring and into summer for the next 2 years, of which there'll be a disproportionate goal. So connecting all those dots and pulling a common thread through it all, I think will help get to the ultimate goal. I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts, but that's how I see us helping from a board level. Again, like we said, continually assessing and looking at the resources you're approving that are in front of you for staff, programs that we might bring forward to. The Champions program was a very big win. And really, you're in a global perspective, but trying to help understand. I think when you look at the data, staying low on the ladder of inference is helpful, but just being really attentive. We lean into policy, and these amazing staff will tell you, maybe I'm just speaking policy every hour of the day. But writing really good policy is very helpful as well.
So if I could follow up on your comment about resources, in the report, you showed a number of mentor resources, obviously the Champions program. Do we need those type of programs in our elementary school? Or do you believe that there's enough support? Because it's a different beast, right? Elementary school is way different than at the secondary level. But is there something that needs to shift, I guess, from that perspective? Is there something that the board needs to approve to ensure that these students are getting what they need to be successful, whether it's a mentorship program where they have someone that comes in that looks like them or can relate to them? I mean, those are my curiosities. What do we need to do to kind of not shake things up, but like just ensure that our focus is on the students at the elementary level?
We need to stay the course with all the things we've outlined and give them a chance to take hold. The idea of a champions program at elementary is a challenging one. Quite honestly, there's some philosophical pieces that are at play, as well as some legal child fine pieces that are at play when it comes to talking about alternative placements and essentially segregation for our youngest children.
And
So that is a conversation that we've been disrupting across the district.
Especially for special ed. So let me clarify. I am very aware of that. I just mean, is there a program, I guess I should say, not like the champions, but some sort of support programs that.
Well, I think what we need to do, leaning back on the risk ratio, is listen to our buildings. We have really skilled principals who are working hard and know their students and they know their buildings. And now we need to give them the data and we need to collaborate with them as well and listen to what are you doing, where are you seeing it, and supporting them how to look at their data and how to analyze their data and look for root causes. We need to use the collaborative problem solving that we are asking teachers to do with their students. We as administrators need to do that with our building leaders in the same fashion to find out what they need and they see. So we have to follow the same processes that we are asking them to follow, using data to guide it.
So I've been wondering the past couple of years, is there a correlation between the land wealth in the area and like the amount of discipline and behavioral data for the school? Is there really anything that can be done to diminish those gaps?
I don't know if we've looked at it from a land wealth perspective, but as you might see in some of the slides, Max, we talk about and break down our free and reduced lunch population to kind of see where's the disproportionality in that. So we do have those data available. It comes back to sort of the equity work we're doing in general and how do we support all students, right? When that term all means all, often you'll hear certain elementary principals rightfully say, yeah, this is a great school if you're white and middle or upper class, right? Because that is who we're serving best. They don't say it as a pride point, but as a point of transparency, and we need to do better for certain groups. There is no one magic solution to doing it, but leaning into the systems we've developed, ensuring we're not letting students fall through the cracks by actually using these processes and using the data is one way to prevent that from happening for all children.
I was at Eisenhower just this past Friday, helping set up for the winter dance. I was talking to a few parents and they were mentioning how much the extra support staff at their building has really helped them their past year. Now, looking forward, they're worried that it's going to go away after this year. Is the support staff in the buildings going to continue throughout the years to help these kids?
Brave question.
So I love the diplomacy. You just asked the question. No, we're not taking those supports away. We believe, so you're absolutely 100% right. I think we have not only deployed resources at Eisenhower, but across the district. And I think if you read the report, you will see from this team that's in front of you, there are a lot of supports in place that were not in place 2 years ago. While I'm really pleased with the data, I'm not surprised by it either. We were so understaffed and supported as a district that the results, it's kind of that old adage of you get the results that you put into the organization. So my answer is just not for Eisenhower, it's for our district. We understand that we need to continue to invest in our students. And I think that's the way that we look at it. It's not spending money, it's an investment in students. When we invest in students, they do well. And when students do well, then we are achieving what the strategic plan which this board has set out for us. We're accomplishing the strategic plan. So that answer is just not for Eisenhower, but it is specifically, but it's for all of our students across the district. It goes from us having deans of students in our secondary schools. It goes to having mental health specialists across the district. It goes to all the different support systems we now have in place that we didn't have 24 months ago.
And I would be remiss if I didn't add, we've added appropriate levels of staff, but it's not even just the staff as well. It's the great work that they are doing and how they're building relationships with students and adhering and following the processes that we put in place. I mean, it's this combination of the right staff, the right work, at the right amounts.
That's a great point, Mr. Pena, because we could have a school district where there are school districts around the nation, I'll just say that, I won't go micro, that are well resourced and they're not getting the results that you have in front of you this evening. So it's not an issue of just having resources, it's about the work that the people who are there are producing. And we're asking a lot of our staff members, and they're doing a really good job. And so I appreciate the fact that Ms. Willis acknowledged our principals, because while this team is amazing, the principals are taking all of that support and they're implementing the work. And so it's a true team effort that's happening across the district.
It's kind of like a follow-up question. From firsthand experience, I know it's difficult for some students to build strong relationships with the staff and teachers. And I think trust is a very important aspect of the learning environment if we want the students to thrive and feel a sense of belonging. So, especially for East, we've had a new administration this year. And I was wondering how we can encourage students to place their trust in staff at the schools. And also, I want to comment on how impressed I am, like just looking at the data at East, especially with the new administration. It's been, it's a cool look at.
I think it goes both ways, right? I would ask that the building administration is as visible as possible. It's their first year as a new team. The more present they are in the hallways, in the lunchroom, the more face time they get with students, and then vice versa, right? Having students approach leadership and kind of breaking down any of those barriers or walls that might be up is more of a genuine way, and having outlets for connection with those individuals as well. It's never easy when it's a whole new team, right?
And the relationship goes both ways, but ultimately it's the responsibility of the adults. I mean, as much as high school children are young adults, we really need to see it as our responsibility to build a relationship with every student and really work to build those relationships. And for those students that maybe we aren't having the right approach at first, we need to find the people who are having that connection with the student and say, what are you doing? And you need to be vulnerable with each other to say, what are you doing? Because it seems like you have a great relationship with this student. What have you done? What can I be doing better? So building that vulnerability within our staff too, to be open and honest about where their strengths and their deficits might lie.
And getting to know them outside of school, right? Is really a good way to break down some of those barriers that might be inherent, especially for students that might not feel like they have one person. We know how powerful it is to be able to say, I have one adult in this building that I really trust or can go to. So making the time as adults, as Mrs. Clem said, it's our job to have that outreach and set the stage for that to happen. But asking about life outside of school, what are you interested in? What are you into? What are you reading this week? What are you watching? Those kinds of questions can go a long way.
First of all, again, just as many have appreciated all the work that you've been doing, and we're starting to see some real clear impact of that. And also thank you for the answers to the 6 questions that I sent you this weekend on the data. I appreciate that. And I don't know if you're sharing that to everyone, but there might be some information in there that would be useful to other board members as well. I did just want to, as we move in this work and we think about the disproportionality, and I kind of had this in my questions, but maybe not directly enough. How are we finding out from the students what they're experiencing and how we might learn from them those experiences that are taking them outside of like feeling comfortable? Or because I guess my philosophy as a parent and as an adult is that behavior is feedback. And I know that your team has been looking at it that way too, which I really value. So continuing to think about ways we can learn from what's happening, learn from the more details of, I know we can't take a case out of the disproportionality, but how are we hearing those voices so that in fact adults who do need to modify what they're operating from are learning, this actually happened. Something like this happened in our school, and this is how someone responded, and this is why that made that student feel, like instead of finding a trusted adult, I'm going to act out. If that question makes sense. I just think as we go forward, we have such opportunity to learn from our students and to try to have them help us solve this puzzle of disproportionality, behavior overall, but particularly that one. I think if we can really listen.
I think that's an important piece to continue to get stronger at. I think beyond just the pulse surveys that we get from students, I think it might be helpful to talk a little bit about, you've had some good stories and successes getting student voice and feedback through the mentoring and SEL groups we brought in.
In addition to what Luke just mentioned, we also have students' voice coming through the DEIA advocates. They are really sharing in depth what's going on, and they trust the advocates, so they're not really holding back. Through the mentoring programs, the students do a pre and post survey, and they are very specific on what they need. So I have been sharing that information back with our building leaders, and they are utilizing the information to address some of those situations.
Excellent. Thank you so much for detailing that a bit more.
First, my colleague, just want to give you guys kudos for all of your work that you've been doing this year. While I was running last year, the number one concern that we were hearing, and we all know, was behavior. And so it's fantastic to see such growth, like Dr. Hoyt said. It's so uncommon to see such big change in such a short amount of time. And it may feel like it's been a long time, but really it's a year to have 761 less my majors is very impressive. So thank you. I also appreciate that you're grounding this work with focusing on adult behaviors, because I think that's how we keep it consistent across the district if we're not putting this on the child's behavior who are not consistent in their behaviors. So I appreciate that. I appreciate Sarah's team for hiring teachers and staff that share our values. I appreciate the building leaders who I know are getting some pushback on all the extra work that our staff is being asked, and the hard work that our staff is being asked to do. But I do just want to tell you guys, thank you for everything that you're doing in your buildings. And yeah, this is coming from the board down to the district that we expect to see these big changes in your giving us that. So thank you. I just want to remind the community that we're having a school culture engagement session on Wednesday. So if you're really interested in what's going on inside of our buildings and our student experiences, I encourage you to come to that session and share your thoughts on Wednesday.
And Dr. Means, can you share who from your team will be there? I know you and part of your team are usually at the
This fantastic A team will all be there. But I think what's more important, and I appreciate Ms. Heimer-Rollin pointing out the opportunity coming up this week, we're going to hear from students on Wednesday, and we're going to hear from parents on Wednesday. So that's really exciting to hear. And I think it's going to inform how the adults who serve them as staff, how we can even be more responsive. So thank you, Ms. Heimer-Rollin.
6 p.m. at Longfellow.
Yes.
On Wednesday.
Yes.
In the
Also,
theater.
it'll be a busy
In the
place.
theater. Yes. You may wander and see several other things going on, but
Yes, you can also stop by the multicultural fair while you're there.
Yeah. I'll also point out it's going to be a very engaged session. So there will be some information shared, but there will be a lot of opportunity to speak out and talk with people too.
And on that note, are students encouraged to come as well?
Students are very encouraged to come.
So please bring your kids if you don't have childcare.
There will be childcare,
There's
there,
childcare.
but nonetheless, we want to hear their voice for sure.
And then the final thing I'll just say is, the less that our district has to focus on behaviors, the more we get to focus on academics. So that is, I think we'll probably start seeing academics going up as these numbers are going up.
We already are.
Yes. So again, just thank you for all of your work that you guys are putting into those.
Max, and then Mr. Meyer, was that a hand?
Oh,
I'm going to go to Max.
Well,
I'll go to Max first. And then I'll come to you.
comparing a hand.
Okay, I'll go to Max and then I'll come to you.
This might be a slightly difficult question to answer and potentially impossible. But since there have been rises and falls in the data before, and if anything in the future, what would you predict lead to a re-uptrend in disciplinary data, and how can we be sure that these solutions are going to keep the data from going back up?
Where'd you come up with these, Max? Oh, really good at questions. All right.
ABSI.
I would say yes, ebbs and flows are right natural. I'm very encouraged by the significance of 701. I mean, that's not a typical standard error of like what you would see in terms of an ebbs and flow. So I'm encouraged that it isn't a coincidence or isn't part of the natural ebbing and flowing of behavior. What I would say is, I think it's society and environmental factors that have a big influence that schools are stuck sort of combating, right? We had a worldwide pandemic that certainly didn't help people's mental health or their ability to regulate themselves. I think we saw that coming back in different schooling models. We know nationally that more students are suffering from anxiety, depression, and mental health. So all of the schools don't exist in a vacuum. So it's, doing our best here, but also breaking down like the silos of service. Part of why we asked the board to write a mental health policy. So we have easier access in for providers, whether it's virtual or face-to-face. We have a process for that now. It's pieces like that, working together with other factions that aren't schools to help get ahead of that and to try to buffer against any of the societal or environmental factors that might bring us up in our numbers again one day.
I would just also go back to what Mr. Pinion said earlier about continuing to keep a focus on the adult behaviors that we know move the needle. So I think sometimes something might seem new and enticing to try out, and we've really invested in not basic, but just very reliable practices that we all do together and learn together so that we have a common language. So I think if we can kind of maintain some sense of control internally on focusing on that, that will help us in the long run.
Max, we have to make the main thing the main thing. So from this perspective, we have to make sure that we're vigilant around applying the disciplinary framework and making sure that our student support teams, SSTs, are focusing on the needs of every student. You're going to hear next month from our academic team that PACE is a tool that we have to just make the main thing. And we can't, to Ms. O'Connor's point, in education, sometimes we chase the new shiny thing that comes along. We can't do that. We have to stay consistent. And make our student support teams and our PACE procedures our main focus. And if we do those two things and we stay vigilant, the performance and the data you're seeing tonight and that which you will see in March, it will continue to happen, but it takes discipline. And it takes a level of discipline that sometimes school systems, especially systems our size, don't apply. I think the consistency and the discipline starts with you and the board. And I think what you heard from Ms. Hyman-Rowland is that this is what I took from her statement. Their discipline isn't changing. They are very disciplined. I mean, so the focus has been expressed to me. I've expressed it to this team. It's been expressed to principals, teachers. That's how systems move. And we're starting to make the move. So I think, Max, that would be my addendum to what Ms. O'Connor shared.
Thank you.
Yes.
Max, any other hard-hitting questions? Follow-ups are welcome later. Mr. Meyer.
Thank you. I'm going to always now be beating the drum about the likelihood that there will be an operating referendum in November. And it's not a decision, but it's in the conversation. And just today, I learned some historical information about President Abraham Lincoln, and even with respect to his second inaugural address. It wasn't enough for him to say how good his ideas were. Because of his trial lawyer background, every time he spoke, it was said in this recording I was listening to, he felt a need to refute the other argument. And so as we approach 8 months away, systems that you've professed to be very important here, and I agree with that because I spent decades as a systems consultant. Systems cost money. And they cost money to install, they cost money to maintain, they cost money to staff. And I just hope we take every opportunity to beat the drum, to, as you're doing tonight, promoting what we're doing. Well, it's not promoting, you're telling the truth about the good deeds and accomplishments. But we need to, if we're Lincoln, we need to refute the alternative argument that if we did not do this, the outcomes would be that. And I don't know that I necessarily believe in that, but Abraham Lincoln was a pretty smart person. So just put it out there. We're never miss an opportunity to explain what this money does and what wouldn't happen if the money wasn't there. Thanks.
Oh, I was just going to use that as an opportunity to plug another thing we have coming up at the board level. So the Legislative Advocacy Committee is holding a session with DPI's leader, Tom McCarthy. That's going to be on March 4th at 6 o'clock. So again, it doesn't solve all of our funding issues because we know that there's been a real challenge around state funding, but they are creating their next biennium budget. So if you are listening and you are concerned and want to make sure that we continue to have these great programs, then come and hear about how we can advocate for more money.
And I think he does a great job of breaking down and talking about systems and how we have to have the right systems in place, especially as the demographic of our students is changing. And he'll talk about, specific districts that have been successful and those who have not. So a really great opportunity for the community to engage with him, with us, and to find out more information about how we can, make Wauwatosa that lighthouse district.
As I was listening to my colleagues tonight on the board, I was thinking about kind of the big governance functions of a school board. Point the ship in the direction that we want to head. So we know that if we go back 18 months ago to early September of 2022, we see both in Wauwatosa nationally a major trend upward in student behaviors that are negative, and we highlight it, we focus on it, policies are put into place. The team kind of jumps into action, puts systems in place, as Mr. Meyer articulated. Funding and resources were allocated, another major function of the board. Policies that changed and adapted to. I like your guidance of do the really important central focus items, do them to fidelity, do them really well, don't chase shiny objects. And change the culture. I'm wondering right now, parents are about to embark upon the age-old 10-minute conversation with the teacher at parent-teacher conferences. Some parents go in and are probably scared to talk about what's going on with my kids. Some parents are really excited about it. I'm curious, what are some guidance that we would have? And if principals want to jump up and answer this one too, of how does a parent engage in a way that is kind of with a teacher, with a principal, using that opportunity for relationship building? I hope every teacher is completely full in every slot that they have. That parents are really using these times to partner in the education of their kids, but certainly students' engagement, students' behavior is one small component, or possibly one major component of that conversation. But any guidance you'd have for folks during those parent-teacher conferences that we're going to be having over the next 2 weeks or so?
Glad you asked. The last several slides in our presentation are really essential questions that could be asked from parents or guardians. Try to get to it. What can they do with their child in supporting the education? But what can we ask teachers specifically as it relates to culture, climate, and pieces of work that are heavily in our division? What can they ask student services at a parent-teacher conferences if you know this child's working with a school counselor or their specialist, social worker, etc.? What can we ask principals at those conferences? And what can they ask district leadership? So we've kind of tried to, I won't read them all, but there's some really good high-level questions here that might help a parent that might not know what to say, might not know what to ask, to drive them in that direction. But I certainly welcome any other comments from the room.
I just also want to reiterate that building principals have been asked to share a
questions that you might want to enter into a conference with teachers and any communication around conferences. So if anybody's listening who has not received that information, please reach out to your building principal, as they should be able to share that document with you.
Standing. Thank you for this good work. I hope the community is paying attention. There have been many, many nights when parents were very angry and upset. And I hope that they are at least here in spirit this evening, listening, celebrating the success of the work that our educators have done, that the community has really rallied to help put together a nest of support around our students. We need to have high expectations of our students, and we need to support them every day getting there. And I'm really pleased to see that the work that you and your team are undertaking at the student level, at the teacher level, at the school level is paying off. I have no doubt, as Max articulated, that there will always be bumps. There are things that with individual children, things that are happening in the broader society that will be challenges. But I'm really heartened by the fact that you all are in the positions that you are, providing leadership in the district in these efforts. So congratulations on your work. I know we still have ongoing work to do to make sure that we've got a great environment for all students and that we keep tackling the issues of disproportionality, making sure that every kid feels safe and can be successful in school. So thank you. Mr. Meyer.
I'm sorry, but I have to say this. If you're a parent and you're third in line to talk to the teacher, that teacher sitting at the table likely can hear what you're saying. So I'm defending our teachers now. I'm defending what their appearance might be, whatever anybody might say. But if you're talking, the teachers might hear what you say, even if you're third back in the line. And you need to put your personal feelings behind you, no matter who you are, and collaborate with that teacher for your child. And you have to get your mind around that when you're three back in line waiting to talk. And I'm sorry I have to say this, but I'm going to stand up and defend some things here about what we believe in. So there's a lot, as Dr. Jessup Anger said, we've had bumps in the road. Things have gone wrong from time to time. When you're in this building, watch your conversation, because it might hurt in a way that's not helpful for what you want for our community. Thanks.
Any final thoughts from colleagues on the board? Any final words of wisdom from our esteemed staff?
The last thing I would I'm sorry.
Oh, I think Allie had a comment.
Oh, sure.
I was just gonna say, to leave us on a more of a positive note. I don't know where you guys found the administrators at West, but they've been doing a really good job. I don't know if you found them like in a garden, but no, they've really been on it this year. Like, I don't know, they just show up randomly and all the problems are solved. And it's like, where'd they come from? But they're there. That's all.
Have we officially planted the garden, the administrator? It's a secret garden. Outstanding.
How do you follow that?
I just wanted to remind the garden. I just wanted to remind the board that you have requested that we stay on a pace and cadence where we bring this information to you twice a year. So we bring it to you in February, or typically it's late February, March, and then we bring it back to you again in August. And so for the community who's continuing to say we need accountability, we want to see results, that's the pace and cadence that we're on. It's a late February, March, and then again in August. So for people who want to see how we're progressing, our teams, and I want to give a shout out because not only because she's here, but because of the good work, Miss Lindsay White and her team, our data team, there's data that we're able to pull now that 18 months ago, there was no way we could have even had access to it. And that's influencing the student support teams and the PACE teams. So again, I wanted to point out that per the direction of the board, we provide this information to you in the community twice a year. And we're pleased to provide that level of accountability.
Thank you all very much. As a couple of my colleagues noted, next month, second meeting of the month,
There's only one board meeting in March, and that will be March 11th, I believe, the date.
the only meeting of the month, our staff will be presenting kind of academic outcomes updates as well.
There's 3 audit reports and then the data around how our students performed the first semester. That's March 11th.
Outstanding. We will move on now to Strategic Goal 6, Operations, a report from the Finance and Resource Committee.
We met last Wednesday and discussed the annual audit was presented to the committee and it was found to be a clean audit. The representative will be sharing that audit report on March 11th as well to the full board and community. We discussed the facility projects that we saw on the consent agenda for today and also discussed the rec department's ADA improvement updates. So that information is available in board docs. You can see what was identified interior and exterior. And those projects are anticipated to be completed no later than the end of the summer. Finance reports and voucher listings are also available on board docs if you want to take a closer look at those. And then we had a report from the director of facilities. He has hired many key positions. He's updating preventative maintenance software, which is actually like, I'm a nerd. It was really cool.
Yes.
Where they can identify issues inside of the buildings before they become really big issues. So hopefully that will save us money in repairs down the road. And then they are working on creating a district facility master planning process. That was something that the board discussed at our retreat last month. So his team, Keith and his team have started working towards getting that master facilities plan for the board. Our next meeting will be March 20th from 10 to noon.
And Ms. Hammerland, I want to underline that because I think that that's an important point for the community of the board requesting a facilities master plan of the superintendent and the staff that will help guide us going forward. Anything else that you or Dr. Worley have kind of share about kind of that process?
I think they're in the very beginnings of the process. I anticipate we get updates for April's finance committee meeting.
Yeah, I mean, really the baseline has been trying to get into every building and look at everything that the need is and reassess because the need statements previously were old. So that's what they've been working on since he first arrived, 2 months ago?
I believe we'll get a report. The board's going to be getting a report on broad facilities in June. And that's what we'll see what they identified through their walkthroughs. They didn't only identify like physical parts of the buildings, but like how we could do better to support our students with special needs, how we can do better to supporting all of our students in the learning environment. So I'm looking forward to that report in June. I'm sure that's going to be sort of the baseline of this greater master plan for facilities.
Thank you. As well.
Just a quick comment. I should have made it during the consent agenda, but I feel like it aligns with this. But I just wanted to point out the roof at Jefferson that is being replaced. I know that we have a happy building leader and happy staff in that building. Just last year, in the 5th grade classroom, water would leak from the classroom during instruction. And the students, had to sit there as the water trickled in. And
As well as I hate to interrupt, but I think you're highlighting something. I think there were actual buckets and garbage cans.
Yeah, there were buckets and garbage cans.
Yes.
And it really disrupted learning and instructional time. And not only that, but it ruined some of the teachers' personal belongings, some of their instructional material, especially if it would happen overnight or over the weekend. So I know we're talking about budget and facilities, but whether these schools stay open or not, we have to maintain them and we have to give students, an adequate learning environment. So thank you.
And we might highlight that there's a lot of thought being put into how to do each of these projects as financially feasibly as and save wherever we can save. I think the report tonight, for example, of taking the path of working with different companies in order to get the lowest bids, if just so that the community knows how hard our staff are working and how much they really take fiscal responsibility into everything they do. I'm always impressed in our financial meetings about the thought that is put into that ahead of time and the careful research done in order to make sure that we're doing the work that needs to be done, at minimum, doing a little bit more if we can, but doing it in a fiscally responsible way.
Thank you very much for the report and the updates. I look forward to hearing more on several of the items as mentioned this evening. It is 7:27 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is that Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Dr. Hoik?
Yes.
Ms. Willis?
Yes.
Dr. Worley?
Yes.
Ms. Hammer Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Yes. And we are adjourned. Thank you all.